The Art and Practice of Spiritual Direction is a program at Mercy Center that is 3 years long, and it's focused on something called holy listening. The watchword would be know yourself first, because the first year is simply looking inward. We had to write paper upon paper of how we felt about different things, our emotions, how we navigated the world. So the second and third years, though, were devoted to practicing listening and awareness skills so that once certified, a graduate of the program could facilitate a meaningful experience for those who wanted something more out of life. I entered the program in 2013 and managed to cram 3 years into 5. And I graduated in 2018. And while I continue to meet a few clients, as a holy listener, I would say that the most valuable fruits that I got from that program were personal, because it compelled me to identify and acknowledge my own core wounds and to see how they were controlling, really, the way that I was thinking and feeling and acting in the world. So I rediscovered the self of my heart. It wasn't actually becoming different. It was reclaiming that which I knew was inside. So I rediscovered that heart and soul and my true spirit. And that has allowed me to greet each day with eagerness and joy. I will never fully arrive in this business of knowing myself. In fact, all that I can really hope for is an attempt at anticipating life's journey with simple curiosity, eager for what is around the bend without really knowing what is there. For even the less than pleasant experiences can include teachable moments, tenderness, and grace. So it is with a sense of wonder, and wonder that was nurtured and honed during my time at Mercy Center, that I work to cultivate as I continue navigating this sacred earthly journey. And these verses from Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, and ancient Corinth corresponds today to about 3 provinces in modern Turkey, and they're in the highlands of the central Anatolia. Those verses from Paul have begun to resonate with me, and perhaps for the first time, I am able to some degree to experience what each of them feels like, and I'm developing a taste for them. So from Galatians 5, verses 22 and 23, Paul writes, "The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, self-control, and gentleness. There is no law against these things." Now, I've read that the average person can hold about 7 things in their working memory at any given time, and so Paul gave us 9. I thought it might be helpful if we had a little bit of association, because that's also how I remember things often. And if we associate one of the fruits of the Spirit with an edible, tangible fruit, then every time that you go to the farmer's market or you walk through the produce section of the grocery store, then the strawberries or the oranges or the grapes will be calling out a blessing to you, similar to the blessing from the poem that George read for us. Take all you want of this blessing. Take every morsel that you need for the path ahead. Let its fruits fall into your hands. Gather them into the basket of your arms. Now, my original plan was to build a basket of fruit as we went today, and I could just see the fruits of the Spirit tangibly falling into the aisle as I tried to put strawberries and cherries and grapes in here, so I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So use your imagination as we go through the fruits. And we're going to start with love. Perhaps the most common representation of love is the strawberry. It is cultivated worldwide, and it enjoys being drenched in chocolate. It has the shape of a heart and is one of Edible Arrangement's best sellers. So we begin our spiritual cornucopia with love. And what better way to represent joy than cherries? I'm sure you have all heard of the classic dessert called Cherries Jubilee. It's a decadent sauce flambéed and served over ice cream. However, according to health.com, cherries can be joyful even without the flambé and the ice cream. They are a potent source of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, and they are lower than many fruits on the glycemic index. So joy joins love in our basket. Peace of mind and heart may be represented with the blueberry. So according to healthline.com, you see where this is going here. Blueberries may lower blood pressure and reduce the possibility of heart disease. When the Pilgrims immigrated to North America, where the blueberry was native, it was a source of sustenance because they had a little trouble getting their own crops started, and so they often depended upon the blueberry. It was believed that blueberry also reduced the incidence of scurvy. And who could keep their defenses up when presented with a blueberry cobbler hot out of the oven, just as a neighborly welcome? So peace joins love and joy. I do have to give my apologies to Tom Papa. How many of you know Tom Papa on NPR? Well, you'll get the idea, and it's okay if you don't know him. Have you ever waited patiently for a pear to ripen at room temperature so that the perfect moment is when the juice will flow down your chin? And have you ever indulged in ordering Harry and David Royal Riviera pears from Medford, Oregon, hoping to eat one right out of the box, but discovering that the window of opportunity may be several days in the future? I have. And it's worth the wait. There is evidence of the use of pears as a food source since prehistoric times. And I also discovered that the pear wood is one of the preferred materials in making high-quality woodwind instruments. So the patient pear has been a long time coming, and it is added to our basket. Kindness may be best represented by the apple. Like strawberries, apples are cultivated worldwide. And one of my sweetest memories is being in the kitchen with my grandmother in Indiana. And one of the apples in the summer was a transparent apple. They are not very common, but they make wonderful applesauce. And so we would spend hours peeling apples and ricing them and making homemade applesauce. And then she would put them in jars and seal them and put them on our pantry shelf for giving away. And an apple pie was traditionally presented to anyone moving into our neighborhood. So let's add a bit of kindness to the mix. Now, grapes for me embody generosity. Its bunches are easy to pull apart, and you can share them. We use the juice of grapes for communion here at the table where all are welcome. Grapes cascade from vines and are plentiful, bestowing generosity to our basket. The faithful orange is one of the most cultivated fruits in the world. It's first mentioned in Chinese literature in 314 BCE. And in 2018, one source indicated that 29.48 million metric tons of apples were produced. I cannot even imagine what that looks like. Oranges suggest sunshine and health and vitamin C. So they are plentiful, they surround us, and we add this faithful fruit to our store. It's no surprise that peaches suggest gentleness with their fuzzy outsides, and there's almost nothing like a perfect ripe peach to make you sigh with contentment. and their nutrients are thought to gently contribute to digestive health. So gentleness now goes into our basket. For the final spiritual fruit, self-control, which seems really off the wall with the other ones, I've chosen, guess what? The lemon. Now, it does have significant health benefits, but too much of a good thing isn't always better. Because they contain acid, eating too many lemons or drinking too much lemon juice, who would do that, can irritate gums, soften tooth enamel, and cause heartburn. And its puckery nature often requires the addition of sugar, an element that has some additional negative effects on dental health and weight, to make it palatable. So the lemon reminds us to be intentional about our choices. Thus, some self-control is necessary to realize the benefit of all of the spiritual or edible fruits that we've accumulated. Now, Paul suggests that these spiritual fruits are cultivated from the inside, and we must manifest them in our acts and our thinking. But just like certain edible fruits, you'll notice I did not include the papaya. They are acquired tastes. And perhaps patience is not your strong suit. Or maybe joy does not come naturally. Or maybe self-control makes you roll your eyes. We may not have had role models for these behaviors. Or it may be that they have not served us well. A kindness may not have been returned, or a generosity may have resulted in disappointment or being taken advantage of, convincing us that being nice just isn't worth it. We probably agree that Paul's spiritual fruits would be good to have, but how do we attain them, especially if practicing them has left us hurt and vulnerable? Well, the nice thing about both the spiritual and the tangible fruits is that we can be influenced and nourished by them from the outside in. Gradually, we can become more comfortable adding them to our wheelhouse of internal resources. Do you remember the movie Inside Out? It was a really cute little movie, a film set in the mind of a young girl whose name was Riley. And she had 5 personified emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. And they tried to lead her through life as she and her parents adjust to the move from Minnesota to San Francisco. Riley was pulled between suppressing her emotions or expressing them in damaging outbursts. Eventually, she was able to accept her emotions, to invite them in, rather than to avoid them, and allow others to witness her emotions. She learned to both hold them and display them in balanced and appropriate ways. So it's my opinion that with the fruits of the Spirit, it's both an inside-out and an outside-in process to get comfortable with these 9 attributes. And it takes external and internal work. Just like we did at Mercy Center in our program. We worked internally first, and then we worked externally. And the two began to really mesh. Well, one way to internalize these fruits that are more difficult to cultivate is to apply the practice of acting as if. Melody Beatty is an American author, perhaps best known for her book, Codependent No More, which was first published in 1986. In her lifetime, Beatty had survived abandonment, kidnapping, sexual abuse, drug and alcohol addiction, divorce, and the death of a child. Now, I mention this not as a comparison to your trauma or to mine, but simply to indicate that she has had some experience with picking up the pieces. One technique that she advocates is this acting as if. She says, the behavior we call acting as if can be a powerful recovery tool. Acting as if is a way to practice the positive. It is a positive form of pretending. It's a tool we use to get ourselves unstuck. It's a tool we make a conscious decision to use to overcome fears, doubts, low self-esteem. We do not have to lie. We do not have to be dishonest with ourselves. Instead, we open up to the positive possibilities of the future instead of limiting the future by today's feelings and circumstances. So what this suggests to me is that if generosity is a difficult practice, we act as if it were comfortable. And maybe over time it becomes internalized as a genuine spiritual fruit. Or if being patient makes us fidgety, acting as if that were not so can bring us a pleasant calm, giving us access to beauty that previously had escaped our notice. Another way to approach Paul's list of spiritual fruits is to think of people you know or who you have known, who embody those characteristics so that you can kind of experience them vicariously. For a moment, as I name these spiritual fruits, I'd like for you to identify someone with whom you can associate that particular trait. Do not neglect to consider your own precious self in that list of candidates. So who for you embodies love? And who speaks of joy? Who shows you peace? Who shows you patience? Who has given you a kindness? Where can you find generosity? Who embodies faithfulness and gentleness? And who is a role model for self-control? So for me, the fruit of the Spirit is indeed a blessing with roots. And let this blessing be one place where you are willing to receive in unmeasured portions, to lay aside for a moment the way you ration your delights. Let yourself accept its inexplicable plenitude. Gather its seeds into yourself, like the ground where this blessing began, and wait with the patience of seasons and of years to bear forth in the fullness of time a stunning, stunning harvest, a plenteous feast. Amen.